Hey, folks, welcome to this week's live episode of What's Brewing. I'm your host, Chris Nozick, joined as I am every episode by the one and only Dom Bomb Dropper himself, Dom Tiano. Dom, I appreciate you pulling that up. We do want all of the folks watching to like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notifications on YouTube, all the things so that you know when we are coming on here. But Dom, before we jump into the show, how are you this week, my friend?
I'm doing lousy, Chris. I want to
Uh-oh.
start with the weather. I
Oh,
was
boy.
at work and it was like a torrential fucking downpour for 2 hours.
Oh,
Like
boy.
literally, man, you couldn't see 3 feet in front of you. It was like a solid wall of water. And I'm
Wow.
at work thinking, I left all my windows wide open.
Oh, no.
I get home and I'm fucking mopping for an hour and a half before I can do the show.
Oh,
In my bathtub, I got a window next to the bathtub. I had that window wide open. And I'm really weird because I hate things crawling up through the pipes like spiders and stuff. So I
yep.
always keep the plunger plugged in, right?
Oh, so
There's
it,
there's literally 3 inches of water in my bathtub through the window.
well, I mean, at least you didn't have to mop the bathtub.
Well, no, but
All
anyway, that
right.
was my day. How are
Oh,
you?
my day, I got out of work a little early because I have to work on Saturday. So, good in that regard, but not fun because half my Saturday's gone. But it is what it is. And yeah, just getting some stuff done around the apartment before jumping on the pod here with you. Kevin is already ready. He's got his plate of food and he's ready
Of
with
course.
multiple wives. I'm not surprised that he has a plate of food. And hopefully he's got some good questions and comments for us. Andrew is saying he watched Fubar at work today, not Bruins chat, but
Hi, Andrew. How are you? Are you still a bartender?
where did he tend bar?
Well, he was on the East Coast. He's now on the West Coast. And Andrew will probably kill me for saying this on the air, but Andrew's a really unique case because he's been sober and dry for years now, yet he still tends bar. And I don't know how he does it. Got to give that man some credit.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's funny because you know I used to go out every night, shoot pool. I was on multiple pool teams. I would drink like a fish. And the last couple of years, I've been doing these shows and stuff of that nature, gotten more into hockey, and I just haven't been drinking nearly as much. And it didn't even dawn on me until one day when someone's like, "Hey, let's go grab a beer." I'm like, I haven't done that in fucking forever.
Yeah.
So
Well, I
um,
can't anymore. So,
nope. Andrew says, well, he says he's well. He works as a senior HR advisor and would never kill you. So that's good. At least we know your life is in good hands with Andrew in that regard.
yeah.
And he says that he bartended his first 12 years of sobriety, has been sober since 2005. That, congrats, man. That's a
Yeah.
huge shout out for that. That's hard work to do, and keep it up. We're all rooting for you. So, yeah, it's good to know that you know you're not the only one going through stuff sometimes. So, anyway, you want to know what really ticked me off about today, though, since you were asking. I got
What's
everything
that?
set up for the show. When I put that little description in for the show, and about 2 hours later, I get a notification that says the Bruins are going to Buffalo for the Prospects Challenge.
Well, what did I say 2 shows ago?
Oh,
The Sabres usually don't announce it till the 28th. So, like
for 2 days
everybody
off.
was saying, there's no tournament. There's no tournament. This is, what did I say on this very show? Just wait. They don't
Oh,
announce it till around the 28th. And here
I
we are.
I was just more pissed because they couldn't have done it like 3 hours earlier before I put stuff for the show together.
Well, it is what it is. Like, you know, I don't expect there to be much in terms of Bruins prospects there.
No, I don't either.
because the NCAA players will have classes will have already begun, so they can't participate. They're not allowed to leave classes to participate, or they lose their eligibility. So, you know,
And
you might get a few of the Providence players, but expect a shitload of invites to fill out a roster.
oh, absolutely. I mean, they don't even have a single goalie that they can send.
Well,
They
they
have to
got
invite
Bishop.
their goalies. Oh yeah,
Bishop, but Bishop technically would be an invite because he's not a Boston Bruin. He's a Providence Bruin. He's on an AHL contract.
there you go. Could do you think they could see who was it? Was it Pelosi? No, it wasn't Chris Pelosi who stepped away. I think that broke last time too, since our last show where he's I don't know why I keep going back to Chris Pelosi. It wasn't him. Why am I blanking on who it was?
Pelosi's at the World Junior Summer Showcase with Team USA, as is Beckett Hendrickson.
Cole Spicer, was it?
Yeah.
Cole Spicer. Okay. I was just jumbling up the names in my head here. Do you think we might see Cole Spicer at the Prospects Challenge, given the fact
doubt
that
it.
Won't
I
have to
doubt
leave
it.
out school?
I'll tell you who I think will be there. Bishop will be there in net. Ryan Mast will be there. Drew Bavero will probably be there. Frederick Brudet will probably be there. Jackson Edward would be there. Maybe Mason Millman, who was signed to an AHL deal. I think Regula's probably aged out. Duran will probably be there.
That was my question.
Brett Harrison will be there. Trevor Kutar, maybe. And that's about it. You might get Adam Matura, who's on an AHL contract, and Evan Bierling, who they just signed to an AHL contract, will probably be there. Rest are going to be invites.
Do you think there's any chance they send Fabian Lysell?
I doubt it.
As kind of like a warm up, get the legs ready for camp kind of thing.
Well, he'll be at rookie camp, but I don't know whether he'll play in the Prospects Challenge.
It would be interesting to see if they do send him. Is kind of where I'm going with that.
I think they want to be careful with him. Same with Patra. Patra could go, but I think they want to be careful with him and his injury. Let's not forget, Lysell's coming off a concussion, right?
That's true.
They want to give him all the time possible to be ready for camp.
Yeah, I'd rather see him come in healthy to regular camp than go and worry about a dick around competition that really is just it has meaning, yes, but it's not as crucially important for someone who's as NHL ready as Lysell has been described to us as being. Basically saying that he would have seen NHL action last year had he not been hurt. Like Matthew Quad, same thing. He saw NHL action. He would have probably played closer to 50 games last year if he didn't have the shoulder injury. So
I would have gone to the tournament. It's less than a 2-hour drive for me, but not with the roster that the Bruins are putting out there. It's not worth my while.
As Jeff says, the Prospects Challenge roster may look rough, and as Court points out, I doubt Lysell and Poitras will be there too. So obviously, we'll get the official roster in due time. It will come out, but
I think mid to late August is when we'll see the roster.
Yeah, a couple of weeks, and we'll have plenty of dissection of who's going to be there, what to look for, and my biggest thing is can the Bruins put together a fucking stream for it, please?
Oh, they won't. I think with the players going, the fan interest isn't going to be there.
Probably. For the true diehards, probably a little bit. But yeah, I just don't. Once the names come out and there's 9 or 10 people where you look at it and go, who the fuck is that? and then you realize that they're not even on the team or
Yeah.
have no shot at the team, you're just gonna
They're just a filler.
right.
I'll tell people who are watching or listening in what they really should pay attention to, especially since the Bruins have draft picks again next year, is the Hlinka Gretzky tournament, which starts August 5th. I'm currently putting together a piece that'll include all eight teams' rosters and the players you should watch out for from each country in preparation for the draft. I know the Hlinka Gretzky isn't big in the United States because Canada basically owns the tournament, winning 22 of 28 so far. But this tournament really isn't about winners and losers. It's the start of the draft year. It's a best on best, a true best on best for under 18s. And it's the first games of the season for draft eligible players. And I never miss it. I watch every game 2 or 3 times. I record them just to make sure I get a look at all the players. And because from there, once the tournament's done, they're heading to their own training camp. So this is the true start. I can tell you in Canada, every single game is televised on TSN and RDS. And in the States, NHL Network will have Team USA games.
Yeah.
Plus, they'll have the semis and the finals.
Yeah, Court says us Canadians will get to watch it. And Jeff says, I got tickets for Saturday's game against Columbus, wanted to stay overnight. But the hotels in the area, is that must be for the camp in Buffalo. Just get caught up on some of these. Court calls it the second best tournament to the World Juniors.
The Hlinka Gretzky? Yeah, if you're not counting pros like the Olympics or yeah, I would agree. I think it's better than the end of season IIHF under 18s because this is truly best on best. And the IIHF one is not.
Can you do us do Kevin a favor, because he was too busy chewing and listening to himself chew. He wants to know how you can catch the tournament.
In Canada, it's on TSN and RDS every single game. And I believe TSN Plus is streaming it. So in the States, you might be able to catch it through there. But Team USA games are televised on NHL Network. Plus, they will televise the semifinals and the final.
I'll have to do some digging in the future events on Hulu and get back to you about next week's show. If someone like Hulu or ESPN may carry those because of the contracts and whatnot, where they might be on like ESPN Plus or something like that. So I'll do some digging and stuff. All right, Kevin. Well, maybe it didn't populate. You're still eating. That's the whole premise. Come on. Anyway.
Cookie.
So Kevin's the burrito monster.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So anyway, for our Boston Bruins, a couple things that I had. I don't know if there's anything in particular that you wanted to go over, but there were 2 kind of main things that I wanted to get into. And if we have some time, then we can also do Dom's story of the week again.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I forgot about that.
But before we dive into the things that I had on my docket here, did you have anything in mind, or has anything populated into your head in the last 15, 20 minutes or so that you want to kick us off with?
Obviously, everybody is still on Jeremy Swayman. Like anytime the Bruins tweet something out and you go and look at the replies to the team, it's like, so who cares? Sign Swayman. Who gives a fuck? Sign Swayman. Where's the Swayman signing? Look,
Yeah.
I said a month ago that it's probably not going to happen until after the Hlinka Gretzky, which is August the 10th, because everybody in the organization is going to be in Edmonton. Because, like I said, this is the start of the draft year. And for guys like Don Sweeney and Evan Gold to get to watch the Europeans live this season, this is their only opportunity.
Yeah, and also the real deadline, by the way, Kevin says he's having grilled chicken tonight. So he's still eating. The real deadline for Swayman is December 1. Like that's the
Yeah.
true hard deadline. Obviously, you'll start worrying as we get closer to camp, and camp begins, and he's if he's not on the roster, he's not signed. Like, yes, I mean we saw it happen affect Willie Nylander's performance for the Maple Leafs a couple years ago when he came in delayed, but they squeaked it in right at the deadline, so fine. I really hope.
I would argue that December 1st is not the deadline, that it's day one of the season. And I'll tell you
I'm,
why. Just because the way the cap is calculated.
I agree. I think there's a closer up cap. I'm saying that's the actual true. This has to be done by, or else you are totally fucked.
Yeah.
Deadline. Like, but yes, to your point, there are deadline dates that you kind of want to earmark and go, okay, we'll take it up a little bit in the panic level, so on and so forth. So, but sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, it's just all we have to do is go back to, and there's a topic we can get into as well as Alex Nylander signing with the Marlies. But I was going to say, you can look back to the William Nylander signing when he held out and signed on December 1st and see how his cap was calculated. If, let's say, Swayman holds out to December 1st and he signs an 8-year, $8 million deal. I'm not saying that's what it is, but a lot of people are suggesting that. That first year, the cap hit isn't 8 million; it's more like 10 million, and they just don't have the cap space for that.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it.
I'm not either.
In the least, as Jason says, as long as he's signed by camp, that I think that's their deadline, and I think they are closer than the media would want you to believe, because I mean the fear is what's going to get you to click the articles. They're not close. Yeah. They're not close. I mean, define close. I mean, both sides by now know what the other side is starting at, and it's just a matter of, okay, what is this concession worth to you? What is it worth to us? What is this concession worth to you? What is it worth to us? And you and I have had the conversation. I had done that article where an 8-year contract would be more than they can handle right now, I think, because it would ultimately be buying a little bit of free agency years. You're probably looking at a little over the $9 million cap. And that, I agree with you, is too much to throw at them right now because there's still some unknowns. And with those unknowns, I really do think they're going to look at that multi-year bridge contract. Kevin says, I hope the deal is done and Sweeney and Sway have decided to troll the morons till day one of camp.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they're beyond the point of each side knows what they're starting out with. I think they've negotiated in good faith and have moved closer together. And I think they've been talking for quite some time. And I keep stressing this is not an easy contract to negotiate, just like David Pasternak's was not an easy contract to negotiate, just like Charlie McAvoy's was not an easy contract to negotiate. it's not just about a year and a final number on the contract. There's so much more that goes into it. So, like,
Right.
I'm not worried. I've never been worried. I know it'll get done. Um, and I would be surprised. You look today, Ryan Lindgren signed today.
Right. And what, was it yesterday or 2 days ago? Brock Faber signed an 8-year deal.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So, this is the time. It's either just before the Helenka Gretzky or just after that these deals get done.
I just don't see either side is really looking at this as we have to rush to do it. Let's do it.
No, they're not.
And
exactly. Both sides want to get it right. So
I'm just not panicking. And I know a lot of people are sitting here going and essentially shitting themselves over the idea of Korpisalo and Bussy being your starting tandem. First of all, if something doesn't go right with Swayman for whatever reason, I still don't think that'd be your tandem going into the year. I think they would go and find some other move to make. There are goalies out there that you can get to bring in, so you're not going with Korpisalo, Bussy. Now, who they are and what they would cost you varies. It really does. I mean, I could probably name you 4 or 5 goalies that I'd be okay with them going in and pairing with Korpisalo. Not ideal. Obviously, you want Swayman. Like, clip that part. You want Swayman. But if something goes sideways and he just backs away from the table and says, fuck this, fuck you, fuck Boston, I'm done, that's not what they're going to do. They're not going to just go in with the guys that are on the roster. And
two issues that go with that should be brought up, Chris, is there are people that say Swayman hasn't shown he can handle the load yet. Well, not entirely true, because he's shown he can handle the load in the playoffs, playing every single game.
Every other night.
Other night. So, yeah, he can handle the load. Whether he can handle the extended load remains to be seen. But on the other hand, they're the same people that are saying Bussy should be given the chance instead of Korpisalo, but you've just finished telling me you can't give Swayman X amount of money because he hasn't shown he can handle the load, yet Bussy hasn't showed he could play in the NHL yet. So
yeah, he doesn't have an NHL game played, and he is still older than Swayman. I think a lot of people forget that.
So they're being a little bit hypocritical there when they combine the two comments. Now, the question I get asked the most about the goaltending is Bussy ready? Well,
maybe.
Based on what he's done in the AHL, like, he deserves a look. Is he ready? I don't know. I haven't seen him play an NHL game yet. How can you ask me if he's ready?
Right. And real quick, to your point about the contradiction, Kevin writes, the same people crying about him not being signed will be the first ones to cry over the contract.
Exactly.
Facts, my man. That is facts right there. As soon as they sign him to that 8x8, oh my God, that's way too much for way too long. We don't know this. We don't know that. Well, you're the ones who are saying get him signed. So, and then Kevin says Swayman can definitely handle the load. This is a family show, Kevin. Somewhat. At least try to keep it a little bit. And then he goes on to say, I think DiPietro is more ready. That's a different conversation. We'll come back to that. Jeff does ask a question. We were talking about the other RFAs. Any comment on some of the other signings around the league? Natchez, Konechny.
I love the Natchez deal. I really do.
I really do. I love it for both sides, to be honest with you.
Konechny, I'm fine with the dollars. I just think the term on a smaller guy who takes a beating. Konechny can also dish it out. I just think the term for Konechny is a little too long. I'm fine with the dollars.
I think once we get into year 4, 5, and 6 of that contract, a lot of people are going to be looking at that going, I think this was a skosh too long. But you know what? You kept a homegrown player. You keep them happy. You're building around part of that core. So it's not the worst thing ever. It just, like you said, it's the term I'm not a fan of. So, let's see. Why am I getting yelled at? I said it like 10 times. I was agreeing with him.
Yelling at him for what? I didn't yell at him.
Kevin, I said that you were spitting facts, my man. I don't know what you're getting yelled at for, or at least it's not by us. And then Joel jumps in. If no internal asset of the organization can take the free place to the right wing, do you think the Bruins could try to make a trade to fill that hole using players like Geeky, Frederick, Carlo, etc.? Thanks. Now,
well, you're not trading Carlo because you just create another hole.
Yeah.
You're not trading Frederick because you just created another hole. You're not trading Geeky because you just created another hole. I'll tell you what I hate is Alex Nylander signing with the Toronto Marlies, because there's a guy I would have considered bringing in on a professional tryout. Now, the good thing is that he's only signed an AHL deal, which means any one of the 31 other teams can go in and offer him an NHL contract. And the Marlies would have to release him. It's written into every AHL contract. So, if I'm Bob Weddick, who scouts Ontario, I'm one of the pro scouts, I'm keeping a close eye on Alex Nylander.
I would be. I honestly, I would have loved him on a PTO, just even for that competition for Lysell. And I know one narrative, I know we talked briefly about it, but I am sick to death of the narrative of putting Georgi Merkulov on that right wing. He's never done it before. Like, is it impossible? No. Other players have made the move. But this guy hasn't even proved he can play in the National Hockey League at the positions that he's developed in. Why are we trying to move him to one he's never played before, ever? Can we stop with that?
Everybody keeps talking about it. And it's
now, don't get me wrong. There are permutations where Merkulov can make the lineup over Fabian Lysell, but it's not going to be at the right wing position.
Yeah,
it won't. If he makes the lineup, you change your entire lineup. Actually, was it last week or the week before? I had given you a scenario about the lineup, and I said I had to look into it some more because I hadn't fully thought it through. Oh, I think it was a Marchand, Lindholm, Pastrnak line. Do you recall that?
Yeah.
So I wanted to know your thoughts on something like this because I played around with it a little bit. Your top line, we'll call it the top line, your Lindholm line would be Marchand centered with Lindholm and right side Pastrnak. So that would essentially, I don't want to say duplicate, but it would bring back more of that Marchand, Bergeron, Pastrnak type of line. Your fourth line would be a combination of Kostelic, Beecher, Jones, possibly Brazeau kind of mixing in there as well. All right. Now, this is assuming you would rather have Merkulov in the lineup over Lysell. All right. You could do Merkulov, Coyle, and Frederick. And then you could do Zacha, Poitras, and Geeky.
No. I don't
Why
like
not?
it. I just personally, I don't like Marchand with Pastrnak because Marchand is slowing down. Okay,
even though they played all that time together before.
Even though they played all that time together before, players slow down, Chris, as they get older.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so I need Marchand to drive a line. I need Pastrnak to drive a line. So I need them on two separate lines. Okay. And as I've always said, just about every NHL coach likes pairs now, and then they mix in the third. Yep. We know Pastrnak Zaka works.
My
Okay. We
my
know
counter.
Coyle Marchand works.
Yep.
Okay. It works better than Coyle Frederick. Because I know you're going to say Coyle and Frederick work
No, I,
too.
I like the Coyle Freddie geeky line that we've had before, but that just seems like a pipe dream to be your third line right now. It just unless Poitras really comes in and dominates and says I can be your 2C next to Marchand and Lysell, and there's a chemistry that can't be undone between Poitras and Lysell. Like unless they say this is how it has to be, I just don't see it.
Yeah, and you got to remember, we don't know if Lindholm Pasternak works. We
We
haven't
don't.
seen it.
We don't. The only reason why I would say you'd want to try something like that is because you know what you have with Marchand Pasternak. You're trying to work in Lindholm. It might be the best way to get some Lindholm Pasternak chemistry going because Zaka you only got for a couple of seasons. You've got Lindholm and Pasternak for 7 more years each. So getting those two on the same page with each other would be extremely helpful for the entire future of this offense.
And I think by taking Zaka off of that, he downgrades.
Possibly.
Okay.
You could, and
But
there is
but Chris, you need a driver. Who's the driver on line 2?
on line 2. Wouldn't that be Coyle and Freddie?
I don't consider Coyle a line driver. I
Okay.
definitely don't consider Frederick a line driver.
No, that's fair. I'm not disagreeing with you on any of it. I'm saying this is something that I wouldn't mind seeing in the preseason. Let me put it that way.
Well, they're going to experiment with everybody. You're going to probably see 800 different line combinations.
Oh, Jim Montgomery will have a field day with being able to do that. Let's see, just catching up on a couple things. Kevin says if Merck makes the lineup, I think it will either be 3C or third line left wing. Other than that, no. It is definitely going to be telling how they use him in the preseason. That is definitely something I want to see. I mean, there's a zillion permutations, and in this instance, I would have, Lysell and Brazeau as kind of the 13th and 14th forwards, but that doesn't account for Kuntar. That doesn't account for putting Fabian Lysell into the lineup. Like, there's a zillion different ways to do it. So I just wanted to run that one by you and get your thoughts on it. I was looking at it, and I even admit it's not my favorite way of doing it.
No, you gotta stick with the pairs that we know work.
Yeah.
You can't break up the pair of Marchand and Coyle because the pair of Coyle and Frederick work. Yeah, it works, but that's a big downgrade.
Yeah. That's a third line pair, basically.
Right.
Yeah. Now, what if you were to do Marchand, Coyle, and Freddie? You're okay with that group?
Yeah.
That's when the question then becomes: are you looking at Merkulov and Poitras on the same line?
Will never happen.
I just don't see it. And then real quick, Jason asked, a few Colorado fans are telling him that Tuft was the last cut in camp last year. Any chance he could be a dark horse for the fourth line?
He could be. I find it hard to imagine him beating Jones or Kostelic out. The fact that Beecher is waiver exempt gives me pause and think that he could beat Beecher out, and then you would juggle your wingers and centers that way.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think Tuft has ever played center, so you would have Kostelic at center, and then Tuft and Jones on the wings.
Which isn't a terrible fourth line. It just it sets you back a little bit when it comes to Johnny Beecher and his development and where you see. Now that being said, Beecher is a trade chip. So if you see that you can have a decent line with Tuft, Kostelic, and Jones, Beecher becomes expendable. He's on the last year of his contract. I like the idea of keeping Beecher on a multi-year deal with a low cap hit. I love that idea. But you got to think about other needs and stuff like that. So I wouldn't be surprised to see at least his name being tossed around. Kevin guarantees that Lindholm Pasta will work. So he straight up guarantees it. I don't see it not working. I could see other combinations working better, if that makes sense.
I've been around too long to say you can guarantee anything in hockey.
I think they'll play well. I mean, they're both professional players in the National Hockey League. They're not going to suck together. It's not like they're going to get on the ice together and not know what the hell they're doing. But I can very easily see a better connection between Zacha and Pasta, for instance. And let's see. Kevin says both Pasta and Lindholm excel offensively off the rush. It's a match made in heaven. If they can get on the rush, what if they can't get on the rush? What if they're not playing to their advantages all the time? That's a big concern. You got to assume that they're not always going to be at their best. What happens then? Jason says if Lindholm doesn't work with Pasta, you're going to see a lot of shuffling. I'm not so sure. I mean, that's a good question, though.
You're going to see a lot of shuffling anyway.
Yeah.
The first month of the season, I guarantee you Lindholm will not be with Pastrnak every game.
Right.
Guaranteed.
I mean, especially to start the season, you very well could see Zacha, Poitras, and Pastrnak for a couple shifts. Like, just so they can see what it looks like. You know, you could see Zacha, Merkulov, Pastrnak to see what it looks like. They're going to these things, we thought the lines were in a blender last year. This year, they're going to be on puree. Jason says Geeky and Poitras worked all right, if I remember correctly. I do think that's a pair that
they did
try to keep together.
But you don't have a driver there. Poitras will eventually be a driver, but he's not a driver yet.
And there's no chance that you think that they could be paired with Marchand. Obviously,
I'm not saying no chance. Anything like it's so premature to be having this discussion that it's unbelievable we keep having it.
It's what the people want to talk about.
But I don't, because we haven't seen them together. I can't say this is going to work, that's going to work. All we know for sure is that Jim Montgomery is going to try every combination until he finds the best combinations.
And there's one other thing we know for sure. Kevin hit it on the head right here. He says, I've been around too long to know that I'm an idiot.
No, you're not an idiot, Kevin. You just eat too much.
And it's just like any other players. If they hit a rut, they hit a rut. Ultimately, I think adding Lindholm strengthens this lineup.
We've had the discussion so many times because it strengthens the lineup, not only because they now have their number 1C. I know people want to debate whether he's a number 1C or not, but they now have their number 1C, which pushes Coyle down and pushes Zacha over. So you've now improved 2 spots.
Right. And
you've now improved 3 spots.
I was just going to say, too, if you think we're having a tough time trying to figure out what the hell they're going to do here, at least they have Lindholm in the mix now. Without Lindholm in the mix, this becomes a much bigger concern, is lightly putting it. Like, now you're going Zacha, Coyle, Poitras down the middle again, probably Beecher or even Kastelic at that point. Now you're looking at going, okay, who the fuck is your top line left wing? Who's your top line left wing? Who's your second line right wing? Now you have 2 holes to fill.
About the only thing we know for certain is what the 7 defensemen are going to be. That's it. We don't even know who the 2 goal. Even if Swayman was signed, we don't know who the 2 goaltenders are.
No. No,
We
because
don't
they
know
could
who.
try to put Corpusalo through waivers because of the
Yeah,
contract.
we don't know who the 13 forwards are. We only know who the 7 defensemen are going to be. And we pretty much know the pairs. I see people penciling in Justin Brazeau as a chance for 2 right wing. I don't see it.
I don't see him there. Brazeau, I think I'll put it this way. In my opinion, Justin Brazeau is more likely to not be on the NHL roster than he is to make the second line right wing spot.
Look, I will say this. If you listen to the words that Neely said, that Sweetie said, that Montgomery has said, they need bigger bodies on the forecheck who can arrive on time. Brazeau can't arrive on time as a 4th liner. How's he going to do it as a 2nd liner with Coyle and Marchand?
Yeah, Kevin even pointed out Brazeau doesn't have the foot speed for top 6 play. He just doesn't.
No, but I see so many people penciling him in there that I just don't see it.
And Kevin also mentions the best part about having an all-star winger who's one of the best goal scorers in the league is you don't have to have a true legit 1C.
Although you could argue, Kevin, that Pasternak's goal scoring went down because of the lack of a true 1C and that he had to up his playmaking to make up for it. That's why you see the assists go up and the goals go way down.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think that Lindholm is enough of an upgrade over Zacha, and putting Zacha on the wing is enough of an upgrade on that side that it alleviates some of that for him. So, yeah,
Jeff's
Kevin,
got a really good question.
I was going to come right back to. I just wanted to touch on Kevin's point. People want Brazeau to be Lucic so bad.
It's not going to happen.
I agree with you,
Not
but
gonna happen.
so he's spot on that comment. That's what people want from him, and he's not that player. So, as Jeff mentions, backing up for a second, he wants to know what characteristics in Poitras's game make you think he'll be a line driver that Charlie Coyle doesn't have in his game.
IQ, vision, and playmaking ability.
Yeah. I think there were a lot of times last year where you saw some flashes from Poitras as far as the IQ, the playmaking,
Vision.
the vision, of course.
They're well above Coils.
Oh,
Above Coils.
They are. And the biggest thing that Coyle has over him right now is size. Coyle's a grown man.
And experience.
And experienced. Matthew Poitras is not even able to legally drink in the United States.
No.
There's a big difference between the two. That is why he got a shoulder injury. It's because he's not fully developed into a man's body. That's not a bad thing. That's just because he's so young. He is much further advanced than his physical body lets him be. And that's why you see him struggle in the faceoff dot. You've talked about that ad nauseum on here last year. That's why I think they want to keep him with a guy like Morgan Geekie.
And Trent Frederic.
I love the idea of Freddie, Poitras, and Geekie. I think a lot of people do.
They'll protect him. They'll protect him, and that will be his best opportunity to grow.
And no, neither one of them are 30, 40 goal scorers. They're just not. That's not Freddie's game. That's not Geekie's game. But you know what? Maybe they're consistent 15 to 20 goal guys that Poitras can help elevate to 20 to 25 goal guys.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's actually kind of perfect. Kevin says, I'm so grateful to have Coyle on this team. He's a skilled middle 6 guy with great puck control, good hands, can possess the puck like not many can on that team, and is a great leader. I mean, he's a very underrated player on this team right now.
Always has been.
Always has been, and he caught a lot of shit a few years back because of what he made on the salary, the 5.25. But you've got him for this year and next year, and I can see him getting a little bit of a raise, if not here, somewhere else. So, Mike's got a good question. Wondering what kind of role Kelly and Sacco will have on the Bruins, with Leach already looking after defense. Who gets the forwards, penalty killing, and power play responsibility? I'm going to reword this question a little bit to you, Dom. How do you want to see the coaching staff disperse their talent?
Well, Leach obviously on the defense, and we're going to talk about Hampus Lindholm a little bit later, so we'll get deeper into his what his effect is going to be on the blue line. Sacco will continue to look after the PK and the defensive system, which has always been his responsibility. Montgomery liked him there because he took bits from Claude Julien and Bruce Cassidy, and knew the system, and they basically work the same system, and that falls on Sacco. Sacco, I believe, ran the power play as well last year. I think that'll go to Kelly, and Sacco will work because he's associate coach. He won't be responsible per se for the forwards or the defensemen like Kelly and Leach were, but he'll be more in the same role as Montgomery and overseeing everything. That's an associate coach's responsibility. Associate coach is really a second head coach behind the bench. So they delegate. But I think Sacco will continue to run the PK because it's always been so good under him, and the defensive system, which has always been so good under him.
Yeah, and I do think the coaching is going to be something worth keeping an eye on this year, because let's not forget, Montgomery still doesn't have a contract for next season after this one is over. So is it the end of the world? No, but I think it's worth keeping an eye on to see what goes on there.
He's a lame duck coach. There's no other way of putting it. And when was the last time the Bruins had a lame duck coach?
I don't remember.
It's been a long time.
Yeah. Joel says they need to address the power play because it is bad, really bad.
Well, I think they did.
I think having Lindholm on the power play, and I think they will adjust to have a little bit more Mason Lohrei mixed in. Hampus Lindholm will get mixed in, and I think McAvoy will get mixed in. I think they're going to try all three of them out in there.
I think they might even try Zadorov with his shot.
Maybe, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I think you'll see some rotation in there, and I would love to see Lohrei work his way up to quarterbacking that PP1 unit. I don't think it should just be given to him, but if he can earn that spot, I'd love to see it. Let's see. Kevin also says, I think if Freddie is surrounded with the right players in the top six and gets top 6 minutes, rather, he may be able to hit 30 goals, not consistently though, which, yeah, maybe he peaks out at 30, but that's where I'm getting with the 25 number, Kevin. If you pair him with Geeky, who's no slouch himself, and then you have a guy who can set him up the way Poitras has the ability, the vision, and the playmaking skills, he can find Freddie for 20, 25 goals. I don't want to say guaranteed, but, you know, the over-under would probably be 22.5. So, and then Taz, as you pulling up here, says, seems like Oliver Wahlstrom needed a change of scenery. Perhaps he could have helped the Bruins.
Didn't Wahlstrom resign?
I would have to go back and double check. But speaking of change of scenery and open right wing spots, I'm actually kind of surprised we haven't had the question yet. How long is the pole that you are keeping Patrick Laine at a distance with?
How long is the pole? My pole?
As in, some would say I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole.
9 feet 11 inches.
Okay. I mean, yes, he re-signed at $1 million for Wahlstrom. So, but again, change of scenery. Patrick Laine, is that someone that you would like to see the Bruins name associated with in the terms of acquisition potential?
My issue is teams can only retain 50% of salary. So, like, the only way I can fit him in is not to re-sign Jeremy Swayman. Is Columbus going to retain 50% of his salary for what's he got left? 3 years?
I'm pulling it up right now. I don't remember off the top of my head, but he's got some term in there. Well,
yeah.
I think it's 2 years. I think it's actually this year and one, maybe two more.
I was pretty sure it was
this year
3.
and next year. He's got 2 total. Age 26 season, age 27 season. Granted, those both are at 8.7 mil, and he's a right shot left wing. I think he can kick over, though. I think he can play on the right side.
He can, but like, what's the cost just for Carolina to retain 50%, or Columbus to retain 50% for 2 years?
Yeah, it now, if you knew at the end of the 24-25 season, Marchand was retiring, and at the end of the 23-24 season, you had the opportunity to bring him in without retention for 1 year, I'd look at it. You'd see what he looks like this year. You'd see if you need some money retained. You'd see just what is he working with now as far as having had time off and kind of where's his head at. You've got more data to work with on him. If you know you're not getting Brad Marchand back, he's not a bad replacement to have on that left side for a Brad Marchand.
Well,
that said,
I would argue that right now he's a terrible replacement for Brad Marchand.
Right now, yes. I'm saying fast forward a year, it's a different conversation, but we're not there. So it's it's hypothetical bullshit right now. So for now, I'm not really giving it much thought.
I'm not either. There's a better chance of the Bruins trading for Arthur Kaliev than there is for Patrick Laine.
Now, do I think this roster's complete? Pretty damn near close, yeah. Other than the Swayman deal, you know, the only thing I could see is if Swayman comes in low enough where they have 1.5 left, maybe they go out and they get another fringe forward who can compete in the bottom 6, who might push someone into the top 6, but they're not, you know, they're like you said, Nylander's off the table. He would have been my top guy.
Well, he's not off the table yet, though.
Well, yeah, true. But at this point, you might as well see what he brings to the table with the Marlies, with their camp.
Yeah.
Like it just at this point, there's no need to go out and offer him an NHL contract without at least seeing what he has on the ice first. But
yeah, I I don't know. I see the Line A talk amongst fans, and I think to myself, like, where is this coming from? Um, why would the Bruins be interested, even if Columbus did retain 50%?
Mhm.
So that's $4.5 million cap hit. Am I correct, Chris?
Roughly, yeah, it's 8.7 over 2, so I think it's 4.35.
Right. So what do you? First of all, you have to get rid of that much salary just to bring him in.
Yeah. That's
I
Zacha right there. You're getting rid of Pavel Zacha right there.
and am I getting rid of Pavel Zacha today for Patrick Laine? No.
Not worth it. You know, Pavel Zacha works in this team. You don't know that that Line will.
Correct.
It's kind of why we wanted Jake DeBrusk back, because he was the devil that you knew.
Well,
To a degree.
still, if you had Jake DeBrusk, you wouldn't have Nikita Zadorov,
Right.
right?
I like what they did. I'm not upset that DeBrusk is gone. I want to be clear about that. I would have liked to have kept DeBrusk. I don't hate the contract that he got. I don't think you could pull off DeBrusk, Lindholm, and get Zadorov. You had to make a choice. And I mean, I don't remember who told me, but my understanding is they pulled an offer from Danton Heinen to get Zadorov in the door.
Well,
If I remember the way it was told to me correct.
yeah,
maybe
I mentioned it on the podcast here, but I didn't want to give the name out, and you just did.
Oops.
Yeah.
Kevin right here. Trade Pasta for Line. No, someone else had guessed it in the comments.
But I didn't admit to it being right. I refused to admit to it.
I don't know. I'm sorry. Maybe it wasn't. Anyway.
Never give names out, Chris.
Was it? Well, I didn't say who told me.
Well, people that listen to the podcast would know.
Great. We've reached 5 people. And one of them's Kevin. Kevin forgets everything as soon as he starts eating. Trevor has a question here. Greetings from Northern Ontario. It says, hey, Dom, OHL question.
Oh.
Someone who knows a lot about the O. How do you think the Wolves will do this year, and who was the best ever Wolf to be a Bruin? And then, Jason, I see your question. We'll come to that one next.
Wow. Benoit Pouliot? Randy Hillier? I forget how long Hillier played in Boston.
Kevin, you talk to like fewer people than we do, so it's fine.
Benoit Pouliot played a couple of years in Boston, right?
Yes, he did. Boy, that's
I'm going to have to say Benoit Pouliot.
Okay.
How is Sudbury going to do this year? I'll be honest with you. I'm assuming you're from Sudbury. Honestly, they've got a couple of imports coming in that I like. They'll be taking part in the Hlinka Gretzky tournament coming up early next month, so keep an eye out for them. I love the way Sudbury builds their team, but I haven't looked at the potential rosters for any of the 20 teams to really say this is the team I like, or these are the teams I think will finish near the top of their division. Sudbury will be there. I just have to see the makeup of everybody else's team going forward. But keep an eye on, I forget who they are now, for Slovakia. I believe it's Slovakia. Couple of imports that'll be playing in the Hlinka Gretzky next month. So watch for that.
Let's see. Kevin says,
Wait a minute. No. Glenn Murray played for the Wolves as well. So Glenn Murray.
Okay. I would definitely go Glenn Murray over Pouliot. I just don't know.
You got to look that up for me. I'm pretty sure Glenn Murray played for the Sudbury Wolves.
I will work on pulling it up right now. Let's take a quick peek here. Gotta love some of these sites. Elite Prospects. Glenn Murray. Let's see. I know this makes it for the best part of the pod right here. Let's see. Sudbury Wolves. Yep. 89 to 90, 90 to 91, and 91 to 92.
And what were his stats there?
36 points in 62 games, 65 points in 66 games, and then 84 points in 54 games.
Yeah.
And that's all regular season, not including playoffs.
Now, he played for another OHL team, did he not?
No, he played for the Bridgewater Mustangs of the NSMHL in 88-89. 71 points in 40 games. I'm sorry.
Okay.
71 points in 28 games. He had 40 goals.
So Glenn Murray is the best Sudbury Wolf to play for the Boston Bruins.
I would definitely go with him over Benoit Pouliot.
Yeah.
Good catch on that one. And I do want to go back to Jason's question. Anyone that would interest you on a PTO?
Well, the one is gone. Signed with the Marlies. Alexander Nylander.
There is one
and
other.
I believe we talked about him last week. Did we not, Chris?
There were
where
two that we talked about.
Okay. And I said at the time that Alexander Nylander was a lazy player. And he was in junior. He could have done, if he put in the effort that his brother did, he would have put up 100-point OHL seasons. I think his best was 70. So I haven't always had good things to say about Nylander, but he's matured a lot. I think we had two others, right? Philip Zadina.
We had Zadina. I think Zadina was another one.
And there was one more, was there not?
Was it Vrana?
Vrana, yeah.
Vrana.
I didn't like Vrana because he doesn't fit in age-wise to what.
Which is why you completely didn't like the Blake Wheeler idea.
Yeah.
Or the Josh Bailey idea. Or the Tyler. I mean, right now you've only got a small handful of guys that this would work to do anyway. I mean, you could go after James Van Riemsdyk with a PTO.
Yeah.
And I'd almost rather James Van Riemsdyk over Bailey and Wheeler.
Why? Because he's played there and knows the system, right?
He played there, knows the system. And after what we saw last year, he still has something there. Because if you got exactly what you got from him last year, if you got that from him again this year, you're not off of anything. You're fine. You're good with that. And keep in mind that last year, his back half of the season, again, this is another guy who came in and was affected by a physical health issue. We saw Backes was never the same after his. Yes, he got the flu. He lost like 15 pounds. Who was it the year before that happened to?
Oh, gosh. I can't remember.
It's the second year in a row. Someone's got the flu and they missed they lost like 20 pounds, like right off the rip from being sick. And then they came back and they were not healthy again. Kevin, I know you're watching. I know you probably know who it is. So I'm going to try to have you do it. I'm going to try to look for it though. Was it the record-setting season, or was it the year
I
before
think
that?
it was. I think it was the year before that.
Let's see. Who could it have been that year? DeBrusque had the broken foot, broken leg.
Yeah.
Freddie got sick and it affected him. Last year,
Yeah, it was Fred. It was Frederick.
was it?
Jeff's got it right. Yeah, it was Frederick. Got sick.
Okay.
And he lost some. I don't think he lost as much as JBR did, but
I don't think so.
he lost some weight.
Maybe it was Freddie. Let's see.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
he played in 79 games that year.
which year are you looking at?
He it was 22-23. Freddie played in 79 games that year.
I don't know. I'm sure Fred. Then it was the year before.
Might have been the year before. Although let's
Anyway,
also not forget that
we've gotten way
Schwarber
off track.
injury. Oh yeah, I mean that's what we do.
No, that's what Kevin does, not we. But
Yeah, well,
so
Kevin's no help anyway. He has no idea.
back to Zadina.
PTO.
So
PTO
Zadina,
Zadina.
would you take a chance on him now? Why do you think he hasn't signed?
I don't know. I'm actually trying to pull him up here. Kevin says I'm not even there. Okay. Let's see, because he was with the Red Wings, right? Zadina
Yeah.
was. What did he do for numbers last year?
Oh, I don't know. I can't use my computer when we're doing this because I will get kicked off the stream. And Kevin will enjoy that way too much. And I'm here to make life miserable for him.
I'm trying to pull it up. Let's see. Mort Sider. Would it have been the year before he was with them?
Oh, he was drafted by them.
Yeah, but when was his last?
Oh, I don't know. What are you
There he
searching
is.
on?
I found him. Hockey Reference. Let's see. Left shot, right wing. Formerly 6th overall. Last year, that's why, because he was with San Jose. 23 points, 72 games, 13 minutes of ice time. I mean, I'd give him a PTO just because of his age and the potential. You know what I mean? Like, he's only 24, which means if you do hit, he can stick around for a while. You can sign
because
him
he'll be an RFA when his contract would expire.
He's 6'200", so he's got a decent size to him. So I mean, you could take him in a third, a middle 6 role and be okay with it. But his production, 24 points in 74 games in 21-22, in 23-24, 23 points in 72 games. And then he hasn't cracked the 50 game mark other than those 2 seasons. So like, I mean, there's a good point in that, like, he's not, overly used, if that makes sense. We're not talking about a guy who's got as many games on him as JVR and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So still young body as well. But I will say this: if San Jose hasn't re-upped him, what does that say about him?
Well,
is there something that we're not seeing in the public eye about him?
I think his defensive game is something to be leery of.
But there's a lot of teams that will look at that and go, we can fix that.
Well,
for a 24-year-old. If it was 34, it's very different.
Different. But I think the Bruins look at it like this. Don Sweeney would say to his scouts or to Adam McQuaid or Jamie Langenbrunner, can we fix them? And if the majority say no, then we'll look someplace else.
Right. I mean, I pulled them up on Elite Prospects as well. They describe them as having a complete 3-zone game.
Well, where?
Elite Prospects.
No.
I'll read you the little thing.
No. Don't read it to me. If it's an Elite Prospects scouting report, it's not worth the paper it's printed on. Trust me. Elite Prospects is not where you want to go for scouting reports.
It ends with all in all, Zadina will be categorized as both a two-way forward and a well-rounded game.
No.
Methinks not.
If you're reading from Redline or McKean's or Hockey Prospect, I would like you to read it, but not from Elite Prospects. It's the last place anybody should be going to get a scouting report.
Which is funny because that's the one that people end up using the most.
Yeah, because 2 years ago they ranked 534 players, I believe it was, for a 215-player draft.
That's
really?
That's just overworking yourself.
No, it's not knowing what you're doing.
Yeah, that too. Let's see. I was trying to see if I could find a.
But I think I'm going to segue into Jonas Carpasolo here because I think once it was clear that Linus Ullmark was not going to sign an extension with the Ottawa Senators, that the parameters of the trade changed. Because remember, I said right here, Jacob Lauko was part of what was going back to Ottawa, and he in turn got traded at the draft.
Yes.
I think Ottawa needed to move a goaltender and gave the Bruins a choice. It's my own gut feeling. And Sweeney, again, looked at Bob Essenza, Mike Dunham, and said, okay, we want a veteran goalie added to the mix. Which one is the one you guys can work with, and which one will improve the Boston Bruins? And they decided on Korpisalo.
Yeah.
That's my gut feeling.
And I know that the money works better for Ottawa if they're only required to retain $1 million. And where is he? Forsberg is considerably less. He's got 1 year left this coming year, 2.75. He's 31, so paired with Linus Ullmark, they were teammates at one point, I think in juniors. Was it juniors?
Who?
Linus Ullmark and Forsberg were together. They were teammates, I think, back over in Sweden at some point when they were younger.
I don't know.
So to reunite them made sense for Ottawa.
I don't think it was Ottawa's choice, though. I think they gave this is a Tuukka Rask or Justin Pogge situation.
Sure. No, I'm just saying in general, though, for Ottawa, it made sense to say you can pick.
Right.
Because either way, we're going to get rid of this contract.
No, it
Or
doesn't make sense for Ottawa because what if Boston had chose Forsberg?
then
For Ottawa, they needed to move a goaltender.
yes.
Okay. Boston said, well, we prefer Corpusalo, but the money doesn't work. You know, if they were the same salary, different story. Ottawa agreed to retain $1 million. So it pretty much evened out, 3 million to 2,750,000 bucks.
Yeah, 250 grand wasn't going to crush that deal.
No.
Now, I also think for Boston, the term, to your point, if Bob Asenza said he's the one I can work with, and I want to get into that in a minute, then the 4-year term makes a lot more sense for Boston because you're planning on locking Swayman up for a number of years. Let's say 4 years. Okay, the two goalies ride together for those 4 years. You don't have to touch your goaltending for 4 years. That's a luxury.
Not only that, if they could somehow get Corpusalo to bounce back to, let's say, his LA days or even that brief time in Columbus, I should say brief time in LA too. If they can get that out of him this season and they can get Bussy in for a few games and see what he has, you've now got a trade chip.
Oh yeah, for sure. Now, if you just look at the 8 years that he was in Columbus, his goals against average was 306, save percentage was 903. His 1 year in Ottawa, his save percentage was 89%, goals against 327. So the 1 year in Ottawa was worse, not by much, than 8 years in Columbus, where he had 210 games played instead of 55.
Yeah.
Columbus during that time, newsflash, sucked. Last year, Ottawa was not great either. And I get it. There's the counter arguments and all that stuff. If you look at Corpusalo last year, there's a project that I'm working on right now. Going back and looking at his goals 5-on-5. One thing that I've noticed, I've only seen comparatively a handful. He gave up 168 goals last year. I want to say about 135 of them were 5-on-5 or 123 or something like that. So looking at the 5-on-5 goals, I've spot checked a few of them. And what I'm noticing for patterns are a lot of turnovers leading towards good chances going the other direction, like just straight up just gifting the puck away in the offensive zone for a breakout the other direction. I'm noticing odd man rushes, a lot of them, and the biggest thing I'm noticing when you look at the goals that aren't those two things, odd man rushes and caused by direct turnovers, and you look at him and you go, Corpusalo should have had that one. A lot of those ones came off of goals where he had just made a save and put a rebound in a bad spot. Now, last time I checked, a couple years ago, what were we saying about Jeremy Swayman? He's almost there. He's got to get the rebounds under control. And he did. Nobody's perfect, but he's gotten a lot better. They know they can help goaltenders control rebounds. They know that's an aspect of the game that they can work on with goaltenders. So I have no doubt that they are going to get Korpisalo closer to the 921, 213 guy he was in LA. Again, much smaller sample size of only 11 games. But I wouldn't be surprised to see those kind of numbers from him when the season is over. Jeff says, I keep wondering what the return would have been if they had retained 50% on Allmark and traded him somewhere else instead of taking Korpisalo and his contract and Kostelic back. I really don't hate the deal, Jeff. I really don't. And then Jeff says, I know Dom doesn't like guess the value trade type questions.
Well,
it would have changed the equation. You're absolutely right on that one, Jeff.
Look, just Allmark signing an extension would have made this deal totally different from what it looks like.
Yeah.
Totally.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if it's a long-term extension, I have no doubt that the 7th overall pick may have been discussed in that scenario. But obviously that didn't come to fruition. So it's the what if game. But I think a lot of people are over worrying based on incomplete data from what they're just looking at numbers going 89 save percentage, over 3 goals against average, and panicking that this guy has nothing that he can offer the Bruins. He's not starting 55 games either.
No.
Like, he'll be fine. He will be fine. And then Mike's comment from a while back, believe some NCAA free agents could be available in mid-August that don't sign with their current teams. Is there a player out there that teams would be interested in from that group?
I don't think anybody that's going to come in and help the Bruins this season. Not at all, Mike. I know there's a lot of people suggesting that the Bruins trade with Winnipeg for Rutger McGroarty. I don't see Winnipeg making the trade this year. Like, to me, it's bad asset management. They hold his rights for another 2 years. They could say to him, you know what, go back to school and play this year. They've got a whole year to try and change his mind. If not, trade him next off season, when there's going to be more suitors for him. And it only makes the value go up.
Yeah, and I know people are also talking about Frank Saravalli had on his podcast mentioned a couple deals that were in place, one of which was McGroarty included with Perfetti and a pick for Natchez, I believe it was, which why are you laughing?
Think about that trade.
I mean, maybe the pick is a first unprotected, so it still seems like I don't know. And he didn't know why it didn't go through. Supposedly it was there. Supposedly Buffalo had a deal in place for Natchez as well. Natchez didn't want to sign in Buffalo, so that niched that one. So, like, I have no doubt that Marty Natchez was being shopped. I have no doubt that McGroarty is even being talked about. But they're not going to pull the trigger on deals that just don't make sense.
No.
Jeff says, I don't hate the deal either, but it hinges on Korpisalo's performance. If he tanks, I think it's a bit of a bad business. I trust in goalie Bob. But, Jeff, any deal where the player you get sucks is a bad deal. All trades hinge on the player's performance. Everybody looks back at the Rick Nash trade in a negative light right now because they got, a year out of Rick Nash? He was supposed to re-sign. He opted to retire because of the concussion issue. If he re-signs, even if it's for 3 or 4 seasons, no one hates that trade. No one hates that trade. I'd love to have Ryan Lindgren on this Bruins team right now. I'd love to. He's a great player. But you had to include him to get Nash. You gave up a lot to get Nash, but you were also supposed to re-sign him. And his performance was fine. His health was not. So those are the two things, health and performance, that make any deal look good or look bad. I know it's not a steaming hot take, but it's just fact. So we're winding down here, Dom. Do you want to enlighten us with Dom's draft pick prospect story of the week before we all head out on our way? And it's almost 8:00 here on the East Coast. A nice time to get a little bit of early bedtime. And how about you give us story time before bedtime?
Oh, geez, I haven't even been thinking of one. Okay. I gotta say it was between, because I don't want to name the player.
Don't worry, I'll accidentally out him in 6 weeks.
2009 and 2012. Let's put it this way. It was a Bruins draft pick. And I'm sitting at home one morning doing some work. Phone rings. It's the player's father. And I said, "Hi, how you doing? Blah, 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 blah." He says, "So-and-so and I are going to ask for a trade." This is in junior. And I said, "What?" He says, "We're going to ask for a trade." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, because we're not happy with the ice time so-and-so is getting, and it's really pissing us off," and blah, 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 blah. He had already been drafted by the Bruins. I said, "Don't, man." I said, "Don't." I said, "Remember how pissed off the Bruins were when, oh, shit, I'm going to give it away here. Someone else asked for a trade without informing them." I said, "Do yourself a favor, talk to the Bruins, let the Bruins get in touch with his junior team and let them make the arrangements." I said, "But don't you make the call. You call so-and-so's agent and let him make the call." So the call was made to the agent. I don't know where it went after that. It must have gotten to the Bruins and then back to the junior team, because the head coach went into the dressing room, slammed the dressing room door shut, and said, "I don't give a fuck who your father is, and I don't give a fuck who drafted you. This is my fucking hockey team, and I will choose to play you guys the way I fucking seem fit. And if you don't like it, there's the fucking door, and get the fuck out of here right now."
And here I am telling Kevin earlier in the show that we're a family pod.
Oh, well, did you want me to use beeps?
I can edit them in later if you think it'll be funny.
All right. Yeah, sure, why not? But I will never ever forget that. Like,
that's
why are you calling me? Like,
yeah, right?
Okay, like,
nothing against you, Don, but what the fuck are you gonna do about it?
I wasn't gonna do anything about it except lead him in the right direction. Like, first of all, as a parent, you should never make demands for your children, even if he isn't at that time an adult.
Yeah,
still your child. You know, go about it the right way. And it was clear to me that I had to specify. Don't you call the Bruins yourself. Call your agent and ask them to make the call.
Right. Not to mention the fact that why you have a fucking agent.
Right. But I'm assuming that they took my advice because I knew how personally, I knew how upset the Bruins were that another player had asked for a trade without going to them first in junior. And it didn't sit well with them. But it's obvious that the Bruins contacted the team and tried to do something about it because the coach just flipped out about it.
So here's the real question. Two questions. One, did the junior team end up trading him?
No.
And two, did the Bruins end up trading him?
No. Oh, wait. Yeah, the Bruins did.
They traded him or let him walk?
No, they traded him.
Okay.
Because he had an NHL contract.
Okay. That does help narrow it down just a little bit for those who want to guess. But don't worry, this one I won't out in 6 weeks. Anyway, gotta love those stories though. We're gonna do the show again next week. Got some stuff in the works for my other show, Puck Off. So we'll get some other coverage in there as well. Not just Bruins talk. For those of you who are interested in other hockey items, we'll say. Big month coming up in August for that. But yeah, Dom, between now and next week, is there anything that you're keeping an eye out for other than the obvious Swayman contract announcement that we're not expecting? And any final thoughts for this week?
No, I think things are going pretty much the way I expected. I just want to remind everybody, because our show next week will be out the day after the Hlinka Gretzky tournament begins. Keep an eye on it, folks. It's good hockey. It's great hockey. You get a first look at the draft players. So if you have the opportunity to watch it, watch it. Have you been watching any of the World Junior Summer Showcase, Chris?
I don't have any of the channels that it's on.
Oh, okay.
I wish.
I think Beckett Hendrickson has a good chance to make the squad. I don't see Pelosi making it, and everybody says, well, we'll say it, but isn't Pelosi the better prospect? I said at the time of the draft that I would have reversed the 2 picks, so I'm sticking with that.
Yeah, but that's not to say either one of them are bad picks. Let's make that clear. So, but I want to thank Jeff here. This comment, great stories, great pod, appreciate it. Cheers to you as well.
Thanks, Jeff. Don't forget to follow and
like and subscribe. The big thing is when you subscribe, there's that bell that you see. That bell will notify you every time we go live. And if you can't always catch the show live, we do have it out as a pod anywhere that you get your pods. So Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, etc. Pretty much anywhere that you find a podcast, you can find ours. So that's always good too. So if you miss a show, you can catch it. It's also going to be on YouTube as well. Twitch, we're on Twitch, so you can subscribe to us on there if that's more your thing. We're still working on trying to figure out the Twitter thing, just because Elon can't make up his mind on what he wants to do with that thing. So keep an eye out there. We're still using our accounts. It's just a matter for the streaming portion. We're trying to sort some of that stuff out. But we love doing this. We love all the comments. We will be here each and every week. Although I do think in a couple weeks we might have to bump the show either to a Monday or Wednesday. We will let you know. And with that, all I got left is go Bees.